Alright everybody, welcome back! War Thunder Update Sons of Attila is finally here, and although it was more of a filler patch with a lot of quality of life updates, we did get a few new vehicles, of course, at least, and one of those is a new top-ranking fighter for the US tree, the F-16 Block 50. Compared to the first dev server, quite a lot has changed, so if you haven't seen any updated dev server videos, don't worry, I'll explain it all for you. But I'll go ahead and cover some of the other changes as well while we're at it as well. The Block 50 is more of like a multi-role variant compared to some of the other F-16s. So for example, the Block 10 didn't have Sparrows, but it did have Mavericks, and it had guided bombs. While the Block 15 only had Sparrows and a Manel, so it didn't have any of the, ordnance that you need for ground RB. The Block 50 basically combines the two. Now, it isn't a straight upgrade. It has a slightly better thrust-to-weight ratio at lower speeds, but overall has a very similar thrust-to-weight ratio while being heavier, so it is going to be worse at a dogfight than the earlier F-16As. Gaijin did state in their changelog thing that they were adding an 11G instructor limiter to the F-16As, but it doesn't seem to be active, so I'm not 100% sure what exactly is going on there. But for now, at least, you can expect to hit 14 to 16 Gs in the F-16As, and you're going to cap out around 12, maybe 13 Gs if you're lucky in the F-16 Block 50. So this thing is definitely not going to be winning dogfights against the previous F-16s. And honestly, I had a hard time shaking the MiG-29As, the 912 and the 913, but it handily beats the SMT in a dogfight, which at least is a nice little benefit in and of itself. It's still more than enough for most ARB games, and to be honest, this is more of like a slight grievance with it because it does get HMD, and the HMD plus the 9Ms are actually a pretty potent combination. And the flight performance is still more than enough, don't get me wrong. Like you can see, I'm about to get into a dogfight here, and I am going to lose it in the end, but I'm still going to take out a couple people before I go. You see, I'm hitting 10, 11 Gs, and I'm still able to get my gun on target. But it has that same issue of the earlier F-16s before their flight models got changed in the dev server, where the nose just feels really mushy, especially at higher speeds, and that has gotten me killed. I distinctly remember one case, for example, where I went to shoot an F-14 and he changed direction at the last second, and I was not able to get my nose around in time. He shot me because of it. So just keep that in mind. Same thing right there with that MiG-29 right there. It does still compress at high speeds, but you saw us hitting 13 Gs right there. It's still more than usable. Just keep in mind this thing is definitely heavier, and you're going to have a little bit more of a difficult time throwing it around when compared to the earlier F-16s, which you'll probably be using to grind this thing anyways. You can see, though, it is still able to pull that insane low-speed maneuverability that all the other F-16s are, just not quite as much, unfortunately. So I figure I could go ahead and show you a little bit of what I was talking about with the AIM-9M. So what it does is when you pop flares, it turns a seeker head off and goes into inertial navigation. So my friend Jake here was helping me test it out. By the way, if you haven't seen his channel, I'd highly recommend subscribing after you finish this video. I'll have it in the description. But what you have to do is pop flares and then turn. You can see all you have to do is pop flares, turn, and it easily went for the flares right there. If you turn and then flare, the missile is going to remember that you were turning, and it's going to go with you. Here's another case where he just flares once, flares again just in case, and he's not hit by it. The missile is also no longer insane front aspect as well. You can see I'm going to pop this right here, and he's just going to pop a single thing of flares, turn out of the way in time, and that's it. All you have to do is just make sure you get out of the way of the seeker head before it turns itself back on. Here's a case where he started turning and then flared, and you can see it tracks him all the way through the flares and kills him anyway. So you definitely got to be careful. This is not your typical missile where you can just flare and not have to worry about it. Same thing right here. This is side aspect. Most missiles, well, every missile in game right now would have gotten flared by that. The R-73 might have as well, depending on how close it was. But you can see all you have to do is flare and then turn, and the missile misses. So it's not hard to deal with these if you know what you're doing, but you have to change what you do. For comparison, the R-73 uses a different method of IRCCM called gate width, where it shrinks its field of view of the seeker head, and so it's much better at hitting maneuvering targets like the ones that you see right here. You got to keep that in mind. Different types of IRCCM are coming to the game. Gaijin is modeling them differently, just like they were in real life. One other really big advantage of the new F-16 is its radar. So it got an entirely new radar kit compared to the dev server, where it's just copy and paste. It did have a slight nerf. The ACM got reduced to only 9 kilometers like the F-14. I've heard that's not right, But in any case, it is much more difficult to notch me compared to before. You saw he had to go pretty much full 90 to notch me, and you do get the ability to switch lock types while maintaining lock, which is a huge deal for me. To be honest though, I didn't get that many kills with the Sparrows just because even if the radar is maintaining lock, the Sparrow itself is very easy to chaff, and of course a ton of people are just going low right now. So honestly, I might just recommend going with 6 of the AIM-9Ms because these are very competent missiles, and you're getting a lot of people like this MiG-29 right here that don't know how to flare them. As you can see, it actually hits him front aspect because he just sits in a sustained turn and the missile is able to predict where he's going. It is nice to have the option, of course, because, you know, sometimes you will have people like this guy who know what they're doing and change direction after they flare. But just something to keep in mind. It is definitely a really big upgrade radar-wise over the current F-16s. Just for me, at least, having the ability to switch lock types while you're locked on is already a huge deal. So very happy about that. I am a little bit confused, though. It's able to guide the Sparrows in normal pulse mode, not pulse Doppler. And the F-16C is supposed to use pulse Doppler illumination to guide the missiles. So how is it working? I'm, to be honest, not 100% sure. But overall, this plane is definitely an upgrade for ARB. Worse flight performance, but a better kit. It also has some really baller skins, like this Viper demo camo is excellent. So I can't fault Geisinger for that. Props to you, you did a really good job with this. I see why you actually mentioned it in the dev vlog itself as well now. Unfortunately, until this thing gets AMRAM later in the year, it's still not going to be incredibly viable in BVR. Of course, it does get 2 Sparrows, and they'll work totally fine, but the R27ER is just leaps and bounds better than the AIM-7M, especially now, in case you didn't see, the R27ER did get a drag reduction, although it did lose a little bit of thrust as well, and it's also 35 Gs now. So it's pretty impressive, honestly. Speaking of AMRAMs, though, that is one thing that is really nice about this aircraft from a grinding perspective, is that the F-16 Block 50 is actually the last variant of the F-16 the US Air Force bought, the Block 50 or 52, which are basically the same plane, just a different engine. And so this means that this aircraft is going to have a ton of upgradability in the future. They could just give this thing a new radar. They may add a Block 50 late, quote-unquote, with the upgraded ASA radar whenever the F2 comes out. But for the most part, this thing can get AIM-9X, it can get several different types of AMRAM as well. And it'll be kind of like an F4E situation where they added the F4E way too early and they just kept giving it more and more upgrades as the years go on, you know. It'll be the exact same situation all over again. And from a grinding perspective, I kind of appreciate it, although I still would have rather had the Block 30 with the better flight performance and still getting most of the same weapons. And then we could have gotten the Block 50 later as the F2 counterpart. But it is what it is, and there's really not much we can say about it. It can also get some better CAS options as well in the future, which I'll be covering CAS here in a second. So overall, though, this is a very fun plane in ARB. Would recommend it. Just keep in mind that, you know, I'll cover the SMT later on. Right now, those R73s are looking very, very spicy. The AIM-9M is definitely no slouch, and I'd say it's probably the second best, maybe first best iron missile right now. For my limited experience with the R73, I'd probably still take it over it. One of the big things I mentioned, of course, was the fact that this was more of a multi-role F-16, where it combines the previous attributes of the earlier F-16s, right? So in addition to its pretty good air-to-air capability, it has a really nice air-to-ground capability as well. You get a nice loadout. You can carry 4 AIM-9Ms, you know, take care of any aircraft, and the AIM-9Ms are smokeless, so they're going to do very well in ground RB where there's no markers. And of course, you also get 6 Mavericks and 2 guided bombs, or if you'd rather replace the Mavs with guided bombs, you can also bring those as well. Personally, though, I would run the 6 and 2 loadout, and the AGM-65Ds actually got a buff as well. You can see they have the smokeless motor now, just like the AIM-9Ms. So when combined with the fact that, you know, you have that Lightning 2 pod, they are excellent for taking out SAMs now. Because unless they pick them up on their radar, they're not going to know these things are coming in. You can see I'm sitting here, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 kilometers away, just locking in with the Mavs, firing them and leaving, and they're just distracted on shooting me, and they don't see the missile coming in because they never saw it launch. I'm able to sit here and kill SAM after SAM this way, and to be honest, it feels really dirty. I have to admit, this thing is better at CAS than I gave it credit for. I still think it was a little unnecessary because we already did have the F-16 Block 10, we already had the F-14, B, which came the previous patch, but this thing is definitely the best cast platform in the game for the US now, and if that's something you were looking for, it's a great option for that. The 120 countermeasures are also super useful when it comes to trying to help deal with the SAMs, and in case you can't tell, another advantage this has over a lot of the other planes is that it has a super modern RWR, right? So what that means is that you can see I'm being warned that there's a Roland shooting at me, even though they're probably in IRST mode. The way it does this is it actually detects the radio signals guiding the missile in, instead of just detecting the radar lock. And it's really cool. Only the newer stuff actually has this capability, and this is a huge deal for me, and I am super excited about it, because it always annoyed me that someone could sit there with IRST, not give any kind of RWR warning, and just beam you out of the sky in a 70 spawn point SAM. So this takes care of that issue. And the laser guided bombs that it also gets are still very good. I think these are 2,000-pound laser guided bombs, which are absolutely massive. They also seem to have better lock range than the smaller ones as well, which is an issue I had with them. In any case, though, what do y'all think of the patch? Overall, I'm happy with the quality of life stuff. A little bit disappointed with the actual additions to the game, but hey, we'll see what happens. Maybe next patch we'll get some cool stuff in October. In any case, though, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.